So you don't, no, not 20. And I'm like,
Turn on your volume. Turn your volume down.
Oh. I was like, how do I? Yeah, so much. By email, maybe. Yeah, that'd be good. Doing good. Just it goes.
JJ, are we ready? Yes, sir, whenever you are.
I got it.
Okay, call this meeting to order at 2:03 p.m. on Thursday the 13th. Questions and roll call. So JJ, we do roll call. Yes, sir. Marcia Porter Norton.
Present.
Kevin Hall. Here. Hilda Yazzie.
Here.
Eva Henson.
Here.
Katie Sickles. Rena Moreland. Mark Garcia. Here. Clark Craig. Present. Patrick Vaughn. Here. So close to everybody in here. So the next item is identification of any actual or perceived conflicts of interest. Any conflicts of interest?
I will recuse myself on some of the Catalyst Fund discussions.
Okay.
And I have to leave at 3:30.
Yeah. Any others?
I guess.
Maybe I need some help on this one. I'd like to recuse myself from the discussion on lodger's tax. So I don't know if this is the time to do that. And I don't know that I have a specific inherent conflict of interest. But as staff for Florida County, I don't feel comfortable participating in the discussion.
Same with me, and you guys can decide what. Kevin and I weren't sure, like, does he need to leave the room? I'm gonna leave the room because I'm a decision maker on it, obviously. And I have just a little bit of factual information to talk about, and then I'll leave. But Kevin's not a decision maker, and we kind of decided he could listen and be part of correcting any information or sharing information. So is that all right with everybody?
I'm fine with whatever determination.
Yeah.
I won't vote on the item if there's no discomfort or concerns or the city, I'll just sit and listen.
Perfect. Thank you.
The only ones I would have would be the similar scenario of the many projects that I'm facing.
The next item is public comment. Is there any public comment?
Hi, you
Anybody?
guys.
Lori's raising her hand.
Hi, you guys.
We can't hear you.
We're gonna get you turned up, Lori.
Okay, Lori, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. I just wanted to speak up about one thing. I know that you guys are talking, there's a steering committee talking about a local funding source, an income stream for affordable housing. I did publish an op-ed in the Herald quite some time back advocating for that. But I just was, as I was trying to articulate my thoughts that I wanted to share with you guys, I found this article in the Pagosa Sun that I'm sharing here in the chat that does a better job of making the point that I'm trying to make. What I was thinking about was that we want to be judicious in what we're advocating. And I did go to the housing summit that we had, and I had to leave to teach college, but the part that I was there for, we were talking about construction defects. I as an investor have bumped into construction defects in La Plata County frequently. I know our wastewater treatment plant in Bayfield was over capacity virtually when it was built 25 years ago, and a lot of other things like that. So I think if we're going to ask the public for more investment, we want to be very careful that we are not advocating things that have already, that public has had to pay for, like construction defect concerns. So I hope my point is clear, and I shared that link. So thanks, everybody.
Katie, do you want to address that?
I don't know what she's referring to. The work capacity for our sewer plant is fine. And it was, we took it over from the Bayfield, sanitation district in 2008. They had sewer lagoons, so,
Mhm.
they were in compliance. It had nothing to do with capacity.
There's been, Katie, there's been infiltration problems and there was a problem with the tribe complaining about, and they filed complaints about the town that there was the water that was discharged was not treated properly. So I'm not talking about 2008. I'm saying even back before then.
It's a different plant.
Yeah, it's a totally different upgraded plant and having overseen the tribe's utilities for a few years, I can personally say that the tribe felt that the town was in compliance at the time, even at low flows during the winter. This was as recent as 2020, so I can vouch for the tribe at least during the.
Do you guys not understand my point?
I don't understand your point about construction or tying construction defects to a town's sewer system.
So it was a public expense, and I'm talking about before 2008. It was a public expense, and then there were problems with it right away, and that became more of a public expense. So that's just one example. Another example is Sunrise Estates in Bayfield. Not too many years after that place was developed, and then there was water runoff into a neighbor, and it became another big a big hoopla. We also lost our irrigation system. That was an in-ground irrigation system that was lost. And I know more recently in Bayfield, there's been runoff in some of the newer development. So I'm not trying to pick on Bayfield. I love living here. I'm just saying that as a member of the public, what I'm trying to be clear with you guys about is that there have been problems that become a public expense with construction defects. So I would say that as a housing authority that wants to advocate for an income stream for affordable housing, we may not want to address ourselves to construction defect legislation. And that point is well made in the Pagosa Sun article that I attached, which shows that there was an economic study just recently released talking about the economic impact of construction defect legislation. Do you guys feel more clear about what I'm trying to say?
And Chairman,
Yes.
I just would like to make the point, and Lori, this has nothing to do with you. I think our protocol here is not to respond directly to public comment.
I think you're right.
Because we can get in back and forth. We can get in back and forth without having a briefing packet in front of us. And it does not at all denigrate or deteriorate your ability to give comment, but I think we need to stick with our protocol.
I thank you. I definitely agree with that.
Thank you, Lori. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
You did ask the question.
I did, that's all. So, any other public comment? Here's the comment. I'd like to point out item F, we have we have this very late. I felt that they weren't responsive to the work appropriate for this body to consider rewarding a land use issue, but that's not perfect. So I asked that item be tabled. And I think candidly, this board is going to see issues come up that are land use related in the future. I just think it's going to happen. And I would suggest sometime in the not so distant future, we hold a session or something like that to talk about how these address these things when they come up. Is inherently folks around here, except for me, who have conflict. And there are, we have to have parameters, we have to have partners, what our initiatives will focus on. And if something is proposed to be presented that's way outside that, and that what I saw is way outside that, then, yeah, we have a clear plan, I guess is. So. Anybody has a problem with that? Yeah.
I would support a future conversation because I think the message absolutely needs to be that we're interested in hearing about what people are up to. I think if people are out there wanting to look for projects and solutions, I don't want to say, no, we have a conflict, we can't listen to you. I do think there is a very low-hanging temptation to use this forum to air a grievance to a government. And so I think maybe a conversation at a future meeting about can we put a nexus around it? Is the nexus that they want, whatever that nexus is. And I know with our right lanes, we can figure that out because I want the message to be, yeah, let's talk about housing, but this isn't the forum to give a beef or a grievance or a whatever, justified or not, against any of our governments.
So we're striking F.
Striking F, unless anybody else. Or any other changes to
I move we approve the agenda minus item F.
the second. Second. Second, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Opposed. We need to add process. Sorry.
We're fast enough.
I did want to suggest an item for this would be under discussion, right? Okay. For the email that some of you may have received from Ken Curtis, regarding the family who lost the mobile home and all of their belongings in Westside. And I believe Sarah was going to be able to pull that up to be able to see that. And we don't have a formal policy quite yet that may arise from the conversation. I'd like to.
I would accept that as a friendly amendment.
I would second that amendment.
Those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? My hearing is not so crazy. Okay. Item E, we will accept the change. Thinking of the page 20. Amendments or comments to minutes.
So I just wanted maybe a point of clarification in terms of what's in the minutes. It's under the Ignacio grant for consulting firm, and we did a pretty lengthy discussion about it, and the discussion of matching funds is part of that. We probably spent 5-8 minutes and then talked about how we're going to deal with matching funds. And I think this covers it, but that last, or the middle, second last sentences on page 3 relative to setting the total grant match requirement is 47.6, which will likely necessitate amendment to RHA budget. The RHA board will discuss and formalize the match funding strategy, ensuring the required funds are available. The process aligns with the grant performance. There's really no mention to the board members asking how the match is being secured. I guess I'm okay with this language. Are we having a conversation about that today?
We are, yes. It has not been, it was not decided in the last meeting, so.
Right, the table,
Yes,
because of the concerns over making sure the mattress is secure.
correct.
And so later in the agenda, we'll have a discussion about that issue.
That is exactly right. We have, staff has come back with a recommendation and more details as to how that will work.
That was my only need for clarification.
Any other questions, comments? On either of them? Bring the other kind of motion to approve the consent agenda. So moved. Second, any discussion? All in favor, saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None, passes unanimously. Thank you. Item G, finance updates. Program Director report, Sarah Tober.
Yes. Well, as you can see by the packet, we have a jammed agenda, so I will move through the good news first. And then we'll talk about some alliance changes and how it may or may not affect the RHA. First of all, we have been asked by Housing Colorado to present a panel entitled P3 Workforce Housing Solutions in the Southwest. This is how public-private, we took a page from Viva's diary. How public-private partners of La Plata County revived the multi-jurisdictional housing authority, partnered with La Plata Economic Development Alliance to launch a housing catalyst fund and rental assistance program while creating a legacy 1 million housing catalyst revolving construction loan fund. And this will include Pat, Mark, and Nicole on this panel along with myself. So that'll be in October 9th to 11th. So we're excited to be representing RHA and all the work that we've been doing these last couple of years.
Does Sarah have any applications for?
More than 100. So we were pretty excited that we got it.
Speaker applications?
Yes.
Yeah, topic application.
Yeah, panels. And we were asked by the executive director, Brian Rosberg, to apply to be a panel, so.
I just wanted to report, Mayor, Craig and I will be reporting on our project at the CNL annual conference next week, and it's, along the similar lines. We're hoping to just report our successes and how we've been in the game for a while and share with the municipality statewide. So hopefully we'll be a little more groomed for that presentation in October. So
Yeah. And you never know what opportunities can come from these presentations too, so. Very helpful. The other great news to share is that we learned today that the city of Durango is receiving the READY grant that the RHA helps support. And that's $55,000 towards early child care investment strategic plan, much like the workforce housing investment plan. If you all remember, you voted to be a partner in this through the housing needs assessment. As we come to a decision on who is going to move forward with our housing needs assessment, one of the things that we were very encouraged to hear is that root policy could include a couple of questions related to childcare to help with that nexus of information that can also be cross-supported budget-wise to ensure that we're able to get the housing needs assessment that we need as well. So all good news there. And then the Alliance has some news to share that we weren't able to share with the RHA board last month prior, but Mike French, our executive director, is leaving. His last day will be at the end of this month. He presented a succession plan to the Alliance's board and they accepted it, which included me becoming the executive director of the Alliance, and that went into effect on June 1st. So we are very grateful for everything that Mike has done, the legacy work he's done in, especially with the DIDF fund and in just setting up a contract with the RHA and building the team and the programs he's secured for us. We do have on page 37 in your packet, we do have kind of an it is an organizational chart. We want the RHA board to understand what this transition is going to look like and what this will mean for the RHA as an organization. This is our organizational chart internally for the Alliance on page 37. So you can kind of get a feel for what our team looks like. We are hiring a business and finance director currently. This role is a great portion of my previous role. So this role will allow me to have capacity to continue to serve the RHA in the role that I have been serving you all for the last year and a half. On page 38 is kind of our additional resources that we have in addition to our staff. We have contracted with a number of consultants to help us stay nimble as a small team, but to ensure that we still can provide the highest quality of service to those that we serve. And on page 39 is a breakdown of the RHA support team. So again, I would continue to lead the RHA work here on the Alliance side with program support by Sarah Schwartz, administrative support by JJ, and then our financial, and I really should have said financial and even grant administration and that kind of support is conducted by Carolyn and the new finance and business director. And then of course your legal is David Lieberman. So with that, does anybody have any questions, thoughts?
I just one wish this is great news. Under the communications and marketing, we are looking at the city to do some robust graphic design work. I know we've done some of that previously, but like enhancing our fair share manual and program information as like a resource kind of for sure, or some way to start to kind of consolidate some of the information. Obviously, we're coordinating on the AMI tables and things like that. But we also have a new fee offset policy for affordable housing in tandem with fair share. And I'm just kind of wondering what the Economic Development Alliance can be offline, but just some guidance on if you guys have any suggestions for like hourly graphic design. We have to get a couple of quotes, I think, at the city for purchasing policy, but that would be helpful.
Yeah.
That goes to be graphic designer.
Absolutely. I think one thing I failed to include in here, oh no, we have that. I was gonna say that we've also worked with Project Moxie on some of that through that technical support grant.
Oh, okay.
They were able to help us with some of that design aspects for the strategic plan and things like that as well. So we will have you well covered on our side where we can help. That sounds perfect.
I just have a comment. I just want to thank Mike. I really believe the team that you assembled gave the RHA a good option for us to take. And really appreciate your efforts. You know, when I first got here, I was like, oh, there's a lot going on. The Alliance is really doing a lot. So really appreciate what you've done for the Alliance and the RHA and La Plata County. Really appreciate that.
Yeah.
I would like to echo Katie's comments. As being an applicant for the executive director job for the RHA, and not sure how I was going to accomplish it, you know, bringing the RHA along. I think you've done a great job bringing the RHA under the Alliance and assembling a great team. And success definitely from all your hard work. Thank you.
Thank you.
I've already said my piece.
I just want to say ditto, and I was thinking about where we were when we met in the county conference room in 2021, and just thinking about are we even going to continue, and to think about where we are today is when we teamed up with the Alliance under your leadership and then Sarah's leadership now and prior, and of course JJ and Sarah S. It's pretty extraordinary where it's come, and I don't think we would be here without you. And I wish you the best of luck. And I know our paths will cross, but I miss you, and really welcome to Sarah. You've really earned your spot, and just really excited about all this. So thanks.
Thank you very much, Mike. You know, joining this board a little bit over a year ago and seeing all the progress that has been accomplished since COVID and beforehand, the history of what happened with the RHA beforehand. I think we really got step forward and also still have possibility of the forward. so any kind of input they give always helps us. So I appreciate that.
No, thank you guys. I believe that the Alliance has had as much benefit to this relationship as the RHA has. And that's a true demonstration of partnership when both entities mutually benefit as opposed to one having significantly more benefit than the others. And this partnership really exemplifies that. A lot of people talk about public-private partnerships, and this is another really strong example of when and how it works, right? And so the vote of confidence from the board to come to the Alliance in a time of need and ask the Alliance to respond and figure out how we could respond, maybe not comprehensively, but what could we take? At the time, Michelle Fury was with the team, and she was a certified public administrator. That gave us a lot of confidence to take on the administration piece, which really built the framework, built the process, built the operations. So she's not here, but I'd like to recognize her because she was a big part of that, of us stepping in. We then built a team with Moxie. Sarah was a consultant with Moxie for a while. Then we were able to bring Sarah onto the board specifically for this opportunity. So if this opportunity hadn't existed, Sarah may not be at the Alliance, right? So that just shows that, how we have benefited in the same way that the RHA has benefited, right? And then we had the confidence to bring JJ on from an intern to a full-time. Sarah Schwartz was hired after the fact, once the contract was secured for a second year. So we've really built this team as a response to the RHA, and it has dramatically benefited the Alliance because housing is a core pillar to the Alliance. So it really spoke to how we could fulfill on that core pillar, right? So thank you guys very much. Thank you for your confidence, and thank you for your partnership.
Like I just today, civil terms.
Appreciate it.
So, we obviously are great. One of the conversations we had from the Alliance perspective is the RHA is in a different space than it was 3 years ago. And I hope you guys notice in that org chart, great thought on Sarah and Mike's part as to what are those organization was that to look like. And Sarah, I was just wanting to tee it up for you so you could talk about that financial position and why the Alliance feels that's so necessary at this point.
Yeah, on the Alliance side, obviously the RHA is a big part of what we do in our housing program, and we're administering the Catalyst Fund and the Revolving Loan Fund now. There is quite a fiscal and administrative burden there, as well as our grants that we manage as well. The Project Run grant with FLC is $1.25 million. So this role is really critical for us to ensure that we are meeting compliance and that we also are keeping clean books and doing, we've had 2 audits basically. I mean, everything we're doing for you all, we're doing for the Alliance as well. So we have 2 board meetings a month. We have 2 audits this year. We have 2, everything in duplicate. So this role is really critical to help ensure that we meet all of those financial and business needs for the RHA and for the Alliance. We are getting to a place though with the Alliance that we're kind of reaching the limits of what we can do for the RHA. So we've had this conversation before, but I think it's about time for the board to have another conversation around a dedicated staff member. And Mike and I's thought was always that our first 2 years of this contract, we wanted to get the RHA back up, get the infrastructure there. We didn't even know what all else was out there and what it would take. Now we're talking about a sustainable funding source, which would help to support a dedicated staff member for the RHA, especially if the RHA is going to purchase land or even receive land or start working in development of housing at all. it would behoove us to have a dedicated staff member to the RHA at that juncture. So just teeing up that conversation, not sure we're ready to make any decisions. I don't have a budget to propose to you on this or anything like that, but it is a serious conversation we need to have.
It totally makes sense, given how both organizations have evolved and changes. We feel so much more confident in the structure of this organization, both organizations. It'll get about the RHA's organization, or lack thereof, 2 years ago. Joined the board. So, phenomenal leaps and strides with that. The great success becomes great responsibility. We gotta make things happen. Yeah. So.
I wonder on that note, we don't have to do it now, but I just wonder if we could get in a rhythm. I thought our retreat we had last year, it led to the summit, it led to the steer committee. Maybe we need to carve out time sometime in the fall before we start doing our budgets, the governments, and then before the Alliance and RHA. Because I think sometimes it's good to do that kind of strategic visionary thinking when we're not in the midst of a big agenda. I mean, I know you weren't proposing to do it today, but just to, get to a different site, be able to let our hair down and say what is really needed and all that. So I'm not sure it'd have to be 2 days, but that was really valuable. And I mean, we've gotten so much done that we said we were going to do when we were in that room.
I know that it's.
I was just gonna add, just this morning, we had a leadership team meeting on 25 budget. So here it is, June. We're all heading into the budget season, so, I don't think we want to postpone too long our conversation about where we go from here.
I was gonna say exactly the same thing. I mean, fall's probably too late, but we gotta think about it.
August for the city of.
The next 45 days or so.
We start now.
Budget is the end of June, so, yeah.
The county's budget goes to the commissioners for presentation in early September. That just give you a sense of timing.
So we have a saying at the tribe Strength Fund that we have 4 seasons. It's
Our budget isn't covers the whole year.
But all good feelings. Anything else? Sarah?
Yeah, that's it.
Catalyst fund, revolving funds.
Let's start with the Catalyst Fund grant version. We had 3 applications in our last round, and we will be meeting. No, it's 4.
Yeah,
4. Sorry, I don't. Oh, it's because I can't read my spreadsheet. So we had 4 applicants for a total of 72 units to be built, 30 of which would be for workforce housing, either for sale or rental. The original total ask was 207,000. We met with the working groups. We did 2 different meetings and came up with some really good questions that were then sent back to the applicants. I've received 2 responses so far, and we're waiting for 2 more, but we will be meeting with the Catalyst Fund Committee next week. Then the working group's recommendation move forward with awards, hopefully beginning of July. And then for the revolving loan fund.
Oh, yeah, I guess we
pause.
we should pause on that. For anybody who needs to recuse themselves.
This is the time to take that up.
Well, it's not, we're not in the decision item yet. We would just be talking about the applications that came in. But we can actually kind of just table that to the decision.
Yeah, let's table that for the discussion.
Friendly amendment to the agenda. Just.
We received 2 applications and we'll be discussing those at the
I think that's good.
at the decision.
I will slightly back up. After the little grid that has the Catalyst Fund numbers, below you will find the financial and technical assistant recommendations. We worked again with Project Moxie for a brief overview, and then Sarah and I also took time to score each project, and then after meeting with them, this is what was presented to the working group, and then below are the questions that arose either from Project Moxie and or the working group. So those would be the questions that were then sent to the applicants that we are waiting for responses from you. Any questions?
Public capital, not the revolving loan.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one.
Goals, 2024 goal update is on page 25. We're in progress with the housing needs assessment. That'll be a decision item for you all that we'll discuss a little bit more. And polling is kind of a part of that as well. We've had a few meetings with the steer committee now. We've had 2 meetings with a steer study group. So we'll talk about those recommendations as well. And then, yeah, I think that, and then the Prop 123 funds will also be talking about, as it pertains to a decision item around the DOLA grant that was received by the town of Ignacio on behalf of the RHA. Okay.
Any questions?
Yeah, so the board will remember there was the question of whether or not your own individual trainings with your home municipalities or governments would count towards our audit, and the news has come back that it will. So, which is great news, and we have just enough percentage here so that Pat doesn't have to do it. So I'll send out an email with a little bit more details, but the short version is if you all could send me the credentials that you receive at the end of those trainings, I can compile those and then send that to CIRSA on behalf of the RHA, and that will count for us.
So can I tack on to CIRSA a little bit?
Yes.
So their annual meeting was Wednesday or Tuesday, I can't remember. They finally had a quorum, so they got to approve 2 or 3 years worth of minutes and confirm board members and so forth. But the takeaway for me was the last 2 years, payments made out in lieu of police lawsuits equal like the entire term of CIRSA. And Colorado is now ranked at the same level as California because of legislative changes over the last few years as to why this is such a problem for CIRSA and so forth. So FYI, CIRSA is great, don't get me wrong, but they said that there's some pretty big challenges out there. So hail damage is one, law enforcement settlements is the second piece. Yeah, pretty interesting. Well, wildfire / any type of building structures. That structure was pretty high up there. Good. Well, law enforcement. Anyway. Hopefully, if I get something in writing or recording, I'll send it out. Just for that.
Next item is meeting updates.
Yeah, we had a steer working group meeting this last month, weeks ago. Again, we've been putting in front of them lots of information around potential taxes and revenue streams that the RHA could tap into. Kim Crawford, the lawyer with Butler Snow that we've been engaging with, has once again advised that really the only funding stream that the RHA could tap into that's pure RHA is sales or property tax, to levy one of those two. Any other funding stream would require an engagement with a government jurisdiction that allocated those funds towards the RHA. So she just kind of advised again, and then we have looked at the various taxes after that. So we're still doing the work there, but again, in the decision items, we will, I'll discuss more about what the steer working group has recommended to the steer committee that is recommending to the board.
So per Kim, she's saying that the authority can apply for a sales tax directly?
We can levy a sales tax or a property tax.
I do property, but I didn't know they could on the sales tax side of things, so it's interesting.
Is she applied on limitations of use of homes on a single sales tax? That's gotta be informed.
I know that that was a question there, but she has not given me an answer on that yet.
That's a really. Is that. I don't. Because we're talking about workforce housing. That will greatly limit the types of housing that we would be involved.
So is this on behalf of voters approving that, or you said you could levy?
Yeah, you have to, it still has to be a ballot.
Sure.
Yeah. Still has to be a
Countywide,
ballot.
I think, right? Countywide would be the vote.
Yes.
Right. Authority has all our member jurisdictions in that county.
Does this apply, I think I know the answer to this, if they were to recommend a bonding mechanism, because RHAs can also bond. But then you have to pass the sales for property tax to be. Yeah, so. Yeah, and the voters have to pass that. Yeah, okay.
We typically do it in reverse of that order.
Right, yeah.
The funding is in order.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And then are they looking at marijuana or vendor fees?
Those are some of the taxes that we're
Okay.
looking at.
For the members, both communities,
Okay, good.
staff and provided a very comprehensive outline. The opportunity. Already started to discuss similar challenges. All that stuff. Nothing's off.
The steer committee has been pretty clear about wanting data and wanting a plan and that sort of thing. They don't want any asks that are not backed up, which we agree with, of course. But in terms of what we can do as a housing authority, you know that the sky's the limit depending on what funds we have, right? So if we have $1 million, we can do, we could purchase land, we can land bank, we can do those kinds of things. But if we only have enough to cover our operational budget, which is what we have currently, that puts us in the position of being able to provide technical assistance, letters of support, trying to apply for grants and state resources and keeping people communicating. So right now, the steer committee has agreed that should be our baseline for ensuring that there is a sustainable funding stream for the RHA. Anything beyond that would really require an extensive plan to be brought forward for them to endorse.
And I would suggest that likely won't happen, but if somebody came forward to offer the RHA piece of property. And only way it costs. So, PR disaster on the horizon. So I think this is just one more reason this funding source, this sustainable funding source is so critical for us to just function.
Well, and I think what'll help is when we get the updates to the 3-year workforce investment strategy.
It has been updated.
It has been updated. Yes.
And I'll send that out to you.
And then I would assume, I think the steering committee's asked for this too, an updated needs analysis. Because then you can start to use the funding mechanisms at play in the workforce strategy and tying that to quantify, right, against analysis. And then you can quantify various projects in the pipeline between Catalyst Fund, Revolving Loan Fund, a grant tracker with fund. And then you could really start to demonstrate how funding can be deployed, and you really have to demonstrate the trust in the community, of course, which we could do with that kind of data outreach. And then you can start to produce a pipeline that opens up opportunities like land contributions, land donations, infrastructure, and other components first that really keeps that spectrum being.
So am I understanding that, the steering committee is just basically looking at what we're doing today, other than the fact that we're supporting kind of a, admin, technical support, not necessarily any housing strategies?
Yes, at this point, they keep kind of getting stuck on us not having a track record of doing those things, or they're looking for hard data, which I, because they said, well, I reiterated with them about, well, this is our budget has been almost $250,000 for the past couple of years, and this is what we've been able to produce. So we have proven what we can do with that amount of money. And they felt more comfortable with supporting the current budget than supporting a larger ask for doing more broader things at this time.
That's interesting.
Really interesting, because
Well, it's very long. I think, talking about two different things. First is, this is where county's going to be involved here. Because there's talk about dollars, about discretion of the county. That's certainly limited amount. That's one item. The bigger item of this first time is what funding sources are available, feasible, timing, but before they jump into a number, let's say that really want to it's assessed parameters about the dollar that's necessary. Each one of them is going to be asked a lot of this. So there's two separate things. There's the admin side.
I don't know.
They're still wanting exactly what Eva said. They're wanting the housing needs assessment that's backed up by the workforce housing, by the workforce investment strategy. They want all that in front of them. And that's what they're looking for.
I mean, it's good to know where they're coming from. I mean, I think that's helpful.
They're the ones that are going to solve it.
I understand.
So they want to be, they're wrong.
Yeah.
But they want to be,
They're a function of the RHA, Economic Development Alliance, so it should be this board that makes the decision on how much money and what is used for. The steer committee should be bringing us, we looked at 14 options and here's the pros and cons of each. Here's why you want to go this direction if you're going to do anything at all. They shouldn't be making those decisions.
telling them to be where they're not going to make any decisions.
I understand, but if they're saying, well, we can't go here because you don't have a track record, that feels like a decision-making position.
It's a balance and
Yeah, Chairman, I think, as you said, I think there's two different items on the table. Number one, it's a short-term strategy, given the window of opportunity surrounding potential larger tax rate allocation, right? Number two is a long-term strategy, which is a sustainable funding source for comprehensive sustainable funding source for significant amount of projects that exist today or will exist tomorrow. The question that they have is, what are the data points, what's the need, so that they understand the dollar amount and then the different options that exist in terms of available taxes. Short-term conversation is really around what should be a short-term ask, given that there are needs today that can be justified for an existing window around potential county reallocation of lodgers tax. So there are two conversations going on in the room, just for clarification. And to your point, Kevin, I do think that the steering committee recognizes that their role is simply to make recommendations to the board. I really don't think that they're trying to make decisions around dollar amounts or they're really trying to make some recommendations and then let the board decide what's the proper use of funds, allocation of funds, et cetera, et cetera. So it's think of it as a very comprehensive study group representing multi facets of the community. So there's really strong representation and hopefully the genesis or the foundation of people that will go out and help promote, market a campaign, et cetera, that's going to be desperately needed and have garnered large community support from that group.
No, I understand.
I just would harken back, a lot of helpful discussion here. I would harken back again to our retreat at the bank last year. And I remember specifically, I can't remember who said it, might have been you, that you've got to know what the need is. And so that's where I hear they're angling. Because I remember Eva one time you said, I think probably is an outdated number, just the city alone's need, and tell me if I'm not quoting you correctly, was 4 million a year. I remember you,
So,
and not to get into a rabbit hole, but like.
but I think we identified that the needs analysis for the city of Durango needed to create 310 units of affordable housing. We used the numbers based on rental need and ownership need from the 3-year workforce investment strategy. And when I went to the city council retreat in February of 2023, that is how the housing division secured the 4.2 million. Was to use that very real information to receive money for those funds. And it helps strategically have a number to sort of work with it. I mean, it's not gonna be completely silver bullet, but it gives you like range to kind of talk with folks when you're talking about developing housing.
Actually, she said it better than I could, that I'm hearing that that's where they're able. Like, we have this short-term thing, which we're talking about later, that would sustain and it's the capacity of the RHA piece, but then to make that case, especially for a countywide anything, you have to do essentially what even did for Durango. It's like, okay, folks, what's the units, what's the number? So are we driving on what Maddie's all about?
Okay, and we talked about having potentially a meeting, a steer committee meeting and potential RHA board meeting.
I would encourage that. I mean, we just had our long-term finance committee. And like, were you there? I don't know, maybe you weren't there, but they sat before the board a couple of weeks ago and talked about road impact. Maybe you guys weren't there, but it was exceptional. They came in and said, we've looked at all these things. We understand your numbers. And I guess what we were just talking about, and they laid it all out. And they didn't actually sit before the board and say, you should do this, or we recommend this. They said, here's your options, here's your alternatives. It was super informative and certainly.
Yeah, that's where the article in the paper came from about our road tax. So a very similar model. Yeah. I think that just to kind of call out the elephant in the living room, I think one of the reasons that the letters in our packet from Steer have come forth is that we are on a timeline for making a decision about the reallocation. So we know that, and I think as long as we're dotting T's and crossing I's, right? We'll be good.
Good on the topic. So next item is 2023 audit reference letter.
Yeah, so you guys know we did complete the audit. The auditor is presented to you last month. This is just a formal letter. We as contracted staff are required to present this to you guys. So it is in your packets on page 27. I can read it into the record that
Come on.
You know you want to do.
I really don't. Alright, and then that's all we have on that.
Thank you. So we're on today's rules tonight, so we're in 24-1, 2024.
We need to approve that audit letter. We approved it last month. I wasn't here, so I didn't know, but I did read the minutes.
Yeah, I don't think that the letter requires any approval. This is just like the kind of final, like, it's done, we did it, here you go, yeah. Now there's an approval. Yes, we did it.
Director Moreland, I seconded approved 2023 RHA.
So,
Each two. Each one.
As your treasurer, I've been working with staff and our finance coordinator. We have the budget amendment before you, which brings in the DIDF funds, some other funds that are reflected in this amendment for you today. So certainly the 2025 budget will take into account these funds as well. So with this proposed budget amendment before you today, resolution 2024-04.
Question? Sure. Or maybe you can do the motion first.
yeah,
So I move that we, formally, I would like to move that we pass resolution number 2024.
The question related to my comment about the minutes. So is the amended budget for matching funds not part of this?
It's in there.
It is in there.
It is in there.
Thank you.
I did have a question. If someone, another miracle happened and we get another 938,000, would we do just another budget amendment this year? So like if we got another source of funds, okay.
so that brings up a question for me, is what we to
You could, sometimes it's easier just to take care of them now and get them on the books versus at the end of the year.
I just suggest good words.
The only thing I was thinking about though with that is that if we're wanting to do awards for the revolving loan fund applications, I'm worried that without this, we can't do that. I think.
I would prefer to do it now. Okay. Sort of worry. Yeah.
And on
From
that
staff
note-
perspective, it's only a couple hours of work for us to just write up a new resolution. We can just copy and paste, so.
I have like 6 hours or so into it, JD.
Am I getting paid by the hour?
I get it. On that note, we did talk about potential payment out of the revolving loan funds. We don't have any, so we just start showing the income side of it. Points.
And where a budget maybe might be needed towards the end of the year is if we got any payments back. So that may play in.
With no funds awarded, we just felt, let's just leave it as is.
Okay, there's a second on the table, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None, passes unanimously. H2, all those in favor,
On page 33 of your packet, we are coming back to you with a much clearer picture of how this all will work. On page 33 is the agreement between the Economic Development Alliance and the Regional Housing Alliance that has been prepared by both of our lawyers that allows for us to conduct the work that has been included under recitals. And this work that is included, namely the management of the DOH grant, as well as the management of the Housing Catalyst Revolving Loan Fund, in this agreement is at no additional compensation. And the reasoning for that is because we will be a subcontractor under the DOLA grant to conduct this work. The DOLA grant is to help build capacity for each entity and for the RHA, and so this work will fall under that scope. So under the next page, page 35, you will see a memo that was written from me to Sarah Schwartz discussing the expanded capacity that the Alliance will be working under this grant and under that contract. And that includes a scope of work on page 36 that is in congruence with the DOLA application. These are all the things that we identified in the application that we would be able to provide in partnership at times with Project Moxie. We've called out where we're going to need an engineer land use policy expert. We've also called out where we potentially partner with Homes Fund and or the Community Impact Development Fund related to just lost the word, deed restrictions. And so all of this is articulated and the amounts and how this will operate. This again was already in your budget, so you'll see the match grant as part of that. One of the things that the Alliance will be able to do as well is be a part of that match grant because we have Project Moxie under contract as our housing consultant. So we will be able to help match that grant up to $20,000. And then the RHA will be matching at $28,000. So what questions can I answer?
What was the term of the grant?
2 years.
What was the term of the grant once you got the
Contract agreement, you have 2 years to spend.
Is through next 2 summers from now, or is that?
I think so. Yeah. We believe we'll have it signed. We believe we'll have it expended before that, but yes.
Sure.
Okay, it just to know.
Okay.
And the amended budget does have that in there as well.
Correct. As well as the housing needs assessment is also in the budget.
Did the state want to see your scope of work or have any?
They will receive this as well.
So they weren't really nitpicking at it, but they want to see it.
They want to see documentation between all the entities that there are agreements in place and that we will be moving forward in agreed upon fashion between all 3 entities.
And yet there's no funding going to already delegated work. This is new work and associated with the grant.
Can I poke just a little?
Uh-oh.
No, I'm just wondering about the preservation database and identifying potential public lands. I think the database and prioritization matrix is probably really a good thing to have. I'm skeptical that we'll find a whole bunch of public property that's like just ready to go, put it in the pipeline. I mean, I know what's going on in the city. I certainly know it's at La Plata County. I don't know what's in Bayfield, but then, you know, what else do you got? You got some BLM parcels here and there, but I just don't think it's going to be this plethora of public lands that are just waiting to be transferred to private sector development.
Well, this database will ensure that we're able to identify any pieces that haven't been identified. A lot of other housing authorities are doing this kind of as a best practice where they have a list of what is available and they are tracking what's available for rent and for sale. They're also tracking a list of folks who are looking for housing too. So they're basically helping to connect the two as well. So we software was a part of this grant as well. So our prerogative is that we find some software for the RHA where this is easily tracked. Because right now we are, tracking with all of the members of the RHA board, but ensuring all other parties like real estate databases are being tapped to.
So do you think private property would also maybe fit in this under this umbrella?
Yes. This would include private property.
One other point, not to belabor it at all, but given the recent legislation regarding reservation lands, I think you can't lose sight of things that are in the exterior boundary of the reservation. You could end up looking at them differently than the typical public or private property. And I don't know what that looks like. I would put that out because I think it's something to pay attention to.
I would imagine that that could be formatted in a database where it is that third type of property. It's not public or private and it's connected to tribal lands.
Because at one point too, Region 9, I remember when Shaq came into his role, one of the things that he was trying to encapsulate information, which is really hard to extract with staffing changes and just not having information is find it. The projects that have been through entitlement and then just didn't go vertically. Okay, and so that's a big piece because you go through the planning process and then it's sort of entitled for a 2-year period and you can do some minimal work and try to get some extensions on that. But I think he was trying to go like a regional approach with that. Because that can actually have another opportunity of like, well, if you can't do it, maybe the city or a nonprofit could come in and help partner to make this happen. And that's sort of really at the fingertips of getting, things built besides trying to go completely starting from scratch with a project that can take 3 years to go further. So I just don't remember where he landed on. I couldn't pull it for it.
But also next question. So
I've been wondering about this because he does that Friday housing call, I think. You guys are on it? Okay, yeah, because I've just been wondering, that's exactly the point. Is if Region 9 is gonna do this database of entitled land, then how would that fit with this?
Well, not overlapping, but
We'll talk about it.
So do we do a motion?
Good question. Is this the first and only addendum to the professional services contract, or is there one?
This is the only one.
Anticipate a second. Just say an
No.
addendum, we want to number it, if you have multiple addendums.
No, I don't anticipate an addendum this year.
Discussion. Motion to lead.
So moved.
Second. For the second.
Who's the second?
Even Peter. No. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? None passes unanimously. And that is now.
So sorry, looking back on decision item H1, I realized we neglected to open up a public hearing for budget amendment. I doubt there's anyone present who will, but just as a formality, I do think we should.
I will open the public hearing for question. Is there any public discussion in the budget? Hearing none, close public. And very good. Great job. We're good. Okay. I have housing needs assessment.
Okay, for the housing needs assessment, the last time we talked, the board had given me the directive to kind of to go back to those 2 original proposals and determine if we could get them within budget, as well as explore the concept of having a localized team in the event that we were not able to get them under budget or were not able to achieve what we needed with them, the original applicants. So the TPMA, I mean, their budget was way off. And when we talked with them, it was very clear that they're looking, because in Colorado, more than likely they know about the legislative changes. And so there's going to be a lot of housing needs assessments needed all over the state. And then they never actually sent us a revised proposal. So with group policy, speaking with Molly, we had confidence that they would be able to achieve what we were looking for, confidence in the dashboards that they can create without hundreds and hundreds of pages of information and data that we don't need. And they were able to revise their budget. On page 40 in your packet, you will see that revised proposal, which is under 50,000 as we discussed. And at the same time, I did have conversations with some localized team members, including Heather Otter with Region 9 and Bob Allen and even Nancy Gosdell with SEH. And there wasn't a lot of interest from anyone who would really take the lead on this. And we don't feel as though we have capacity for this and or expertise in that necessarily. And we felt the Spin Project Moxie also felt the same way as well. However, we would like to include these localized folks in our housing needs assessment process so that we ensure that the data is reflective of their understanding. They are local experts on local data, and so to ensure that our data is in congruence with them. And then again, you can see here on page 8 of their project schedule, they would be looking to deliver this to us by the end of this year. So we feel more confident that root policy can get us the data points that we're looking for, focusing in on employee and employee commuting, where they're commuting from, their needs for housing, as well as some of the larger employers' input on this as well. Like I had mentioned, they would even be able to provide some landscape on childcare as it relates to housing as well. So staff feels confident and recommending to the RHA board that root policy would be our best bet for moving forward on housing needs assessment. This again has been included in your revised budget up to 25,000 from the RHA. That would be matched by CHAPA, who has dedicated 25,000 to match us on this.
Can I just make a motion that we go with?
Second.
I never thought it was bill numbers, it's amazing how quick a month will go. What was the bill number for needs assessment, 274? The bill, there was a housing bill that was, you know how the failed bill turned into a bunch of mini bills, actually some of them were so many. I think it was 274, don't quote me, that required needs assessments across Colorado. Was this everything 274? 174. 174, okay, I had two of them right. Does this comport with that?
It does.
Okay,
We did talk with her about that as well. They are keeping up with all of those legislative mandates. And so this housing needs assessment would be appropriate for all 4 jurisdictions that are a part of the RHA, as well as projects that are applying, private projects that are applying for Prop 123 as well.
I would just echo that it's been really difficult to get contractor interest on housing needs assessment. Jen Lopez and I rattled a lot of cages, and got some proposals back that were really high. So I hope this assessment can really help Mayfield, Durango, La Plata County, Ignacio, and it is a big part of some of the grant requests. We have data to support our housing needs. So I hope the scope will include all that. I'm looking forward to having a document that we all can use.
Well, now the steer committee, if they've asked for it, it's critical that the steer committee's level setting up through the. I think that, yeah, good point, and I think that the cost was reasonable.
The big staff. City can be sorry, but it's not the same. And all this legislative. Stand that's mandate on basis that may not.
I thought you were gonna say something different, but I remember as a town manager, every time we'd go out for a salary survey on staff, one board member kept saying, every time we do this, we just keep raising the bar because others start looking at our survey and then it just keeps going up. So I thought you were gonna say something in that line, but
Well, that too. Anyway, there's a motion and second all those in favor, please say thank you very much. Revolving loan.
I'm gonna recuse myself and call it a meeting if you don't mind.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it.
Chair, Brenda Moreland also emailed and said that she got sick at lunch.
Yeah. And term for audits. Who said?
Okay. The revolving loan fund application, as you remember, the board approved the terms the last time. We worked with the revolving loan fund committee, which is comprised of Mike French, myself, Pat, and Jason Schwartz, as well as Jameson Bobbin. We felt like having a couple of bankers as part of this would be key in understanding the project's terms and everything like that. We put together an application, which mirrors the Catalyst Fund, basically. And we were able to put that up and make it public, and we had 2 projects apply to it. And this is a revolving loan fund, so it is not going to work in the same manner as the Catalyst Fund. It's always going to be open. It's going to be, but it's always going to be based on what's available in the fund. So it's very likely that these funds will get dispersed quickly, and we may receive applications that will be in queue, in line to receive funding once that funding is paid back into the account. I think the application itself, or just to second. Correct. Okay, and that, or is that? Okay, it's on page 49.
Oh, and also, so the full
It's on a printout,
yes,
obviously.
the full applications were emailed to the board previously. We obviously did not include that into the public packet for confidentiality reasons. What we did provide an overview of each of the applications, one of which is in the packet, the other one of which is a handout next to you, and which will go into the packet once we make this all public.
So we've spent quite a bit of time with Charlie and Brad with Pine River Commons, as well as Mark with the with Rock Creek project. So we really fully understand what their needs are, what they're asking for here. Pine River Commons has asked for the whole amount of what we have in our fund, which is $935,000. This would be to help. This would help the project immensely in leveraging funds with the state. Jameson and I walked that property this week. All of the incredible dirt work they've done, the culvert that they built, and they've got 5 foundations underway. So the project is well underway. He's also got lines of credit with Alpine, Bank of Colorado, and Bank Central. However, they come at 8 to 10% interest rates. So he's really trying to keep his costs down so he can transfer those savings to the purchaser. They do believe that they will have 5 units built by September. And they are already pre-selling those. And then for the 49. Oh, Okay, so the second one for Rock Creek, that's right, it did come in after your packets had been distributed, but, Rock Creek project, that they're asking for 500,000. But what they need is at least 220,000 by the 29th of this month in order to lock down with, Far West, Fading West, the modular, housing that they will be able to build them. So if we're able to meet at least that need, they don't have to wait another 6 months. Their town has approved the overall budget, which is really more like 3.1 million or something like that. So this will be part of his capital stack, but there is an immediate need for that cash for that of at least 220, but he did ask for 500,000. So that would go towards the overall need of his capital stack.
Is there any input from people that really got into it?
There is talk from the committee about the consideration of principal curtailment. You want to talk more about that?
Yeah, so two things, before we talk about principal, the payback terms for both these projects are really attractive. When we first started this, we didn't think that a payback would be as short term as both of these projects are teed up to be. I think both parties have been slightly aggressive about their payback terms, which is both coming in close to the end of the year, 6 months to 9 months. But regardless of, even if we were super conservative and looked at those things coming in, maybe Q1 or Q2 of 2025, that would mean that we would receive almost all of the principal back, plus some interest within 2025 and be able to do another round with almost the entire amount, which is phenomenal, right? So I think both of these projects have merit in that, with that lens. The principal curtailment is basically taking those monies and applying them to a principal, which then brings down their monthly payments, their debt basically. And I think that how these guys intend to use the funds, we absolutely want to know. I think that's important, you know, in terms of where they're taking the funds. That's probably the next phase, is getting loan docs and terms really nailed down and having the board's attorney look at the loan docs, approve the loan docs. We can get some advice from both Jameson Bobbin and from Jason Ports, who are in the business of providing loan docs. They've committed to providing us templates, helping us review the loan docs, et cetera, et cetera. So I think at this pass, it's more of a high level consideration of these projects and approval for the board to take the next step. Yeah, I don't think anything will change once the loan docs are developed and it's simply review after that point. But I think Sarah's done a really good job of taking the applications, really creating a funnel, and then this will be iterative, just like we had the Catalyst one be iterative. So we'll learn as we get these first two out. These first two, I feel, are pretty safe. One being a government entity, the other one, we didn't really talk about this, but the RHA would have first lead on that project, which is enormous, right? So there's a personal guarantee and a first lead on that project. There's very little risk considering how much equity they've actually put into the project, et cetera, et cetera. I doubt we'll ever find another, I shouldn't say that, but it would be very hard to find another project where the RHA has a first lien on these loan funds. So it's just incredible how you know, these first two coming out of the gate are as solid as they could possibly be.
My observation. And they're each other.
Is it a recommendation that you're looking for from the board, or we?
You approve.
So. A lot of counties having some challenges getting documentation for the Rock Creek grant. You know, here, I'm just wondering if somehow we can use this as leverage to close the deal with the Plata County, because I don't know what it's going to take. Other than I'm not asking, and I'm not trying to be critical. Great project. I know it's challenged to move all the parts around, but we need to bring this to closure with the Plata County. I guess we're going to support this. But,
17.
I mean, we've been asking for, I think it's been more than a year. And I would like to get that resolved, and I don't know if there's some way we can, maybe, I don't want to say contingent, but yeah, something like that.
What specific documentation are you missing for the county?
Well, there's a variety of things that in order to put it under contract, we've asked for. I feel like I'm airing laundry here, that this isn't the appropriate venue for that, but I would be more than happy to get you up to date on the details of what we need. There's nothing nefarious or bad here, it's just not moving it. We need to bring it to closure. And this might be an opportunity to do that.
The Alliance has given both of these projects Catalyst Fund grants, and both of these projects have been in compliance on reporting on the how they use their funding.
Yeah, I don't think we have any concerns there. We just want to bring this thing to close.
Right.
We want to earn the dollars of the project. Right now, the Plata County is sitting on.
Have you all given this project the money, or you're waiting for paperwork to give it?
We need to get the legal documents, the contract squared away in order to transfer the dollars.
Okay.
And I can certainly use Sarah in terms of the details, and then maybe we can help make the resolution for us.
I feel like because Mark has not done housing development, that he is actually just trying to build his capital stack instead of closing those loops, maybe necessarily.
And that is in fact what I heard July maybe. But if there's a rationale for why it waits, then we need to hear that. I gratefully have not followed up with Mark in a number of months, so. But I do think that rather than just bypassing what's already existing, I want to get this resolved.
I think he has been just trying to get funding for what he can deploy, so he's not sitting on any funding that is not immediately deployed as well. Just to.
The assistance to provide, this gives us an opportunity.
Can I make a suggestion, Chairman? Could we pass one project today, and because if we'll hold up both of them if we create any contingencies, right?
Yeah, and I would even say that, I mean, because no funds have been given in which he's needing to report upon, I understand that it's very frustrating that that the town of Ignacio has not submitted documentation that they need to secure the grant and receive the funds. I would say that we could still move forward with funding this, because it would be different if he had funding from you all that he hasn't been reporting on, and there should be some concerns about how it's being spent, versus he hasn't provided documentation and has not received any funds either.
It's the total amount. It's again.
935,000.
So they're out. Thankfully.
The idea. Yeah, that is the revolving loan fund.
So I'm a good motion. Allocate $235,000 to project. $7,000. I wrote comments.
Any background behind your numbers?
Other than the town cost.
But did you hear her comments? They wanted to,
They are understanding that there is another application and they will happily take whatever. they can.
There is a possibility that the state grants may not work out.
Correct. And this could help tip that though with the state investing in them, because as they always look for local investment as well.
I'm going to just transparently say that I'm looking to the committee, like you guys are, and I'm glad to hear not only the brains, but the bankers on the committee that know how to do this. If you're comfortable with those numbers and especially with your background, Matt, I'm good with it because I think, you have to be a yes board that gets to yes, and this is what they're needing, and if this gets them down the road and we feel like it's a good financial investment and we can get the money back, which is the whole purpose, to redeploy, maybe by February of next year, we will have other projects that happen.
Pat's motion is in congruence with the committee's recommendation.
And I would second.
Second.
I'm just trying to do some quick math. Okay, so 700,000 even.
Yes.
Okay, so for 66 units, that breaks down to 10,606 a unit versus I'm just trying to get some quantitative math here. What was the other amount to
235.
235, and that's for 42. So 42 units, right, or 21? You want to see? I don't think it is either, but I'm just trying to get some rationale behind.
I think from my perspective, the national function is involved with. That's it.
I know, I'm just worried that 235 isn't gonna be enough for all of the documentation, the paperwork.
I've confirmed with Mark and Clark that would be that that minimum would have enabled them to move forward, which is their biggest goal.
And if some funding came back,
It could be,
do we have any limitations that they could or couldn't come?
there are no limitations,
Okay, then I go
including
back
them.
up. Okay, okay, all right, then I won't worry about getting it on that. Okay.
And to get to our concern, I think Kevin, if you talk offline, not only with Mark, but if this decision helps get us what we need, so we can deploy ARPA funds, so that it can get further down the road, we've already done it for Cinnamon Heights, that's what we want, so.
I will reach out to Mark directly and then I need assistance.
Okay. Happy to help.
Thank you. Okay,
And just to be clear, you do not need alliances support. They're closely with, no, is it not? Okay, thank you.
If I learned something that's informative for you guys, I'll let you. Okay.
Chairman, I'm going to step out of the room for this as a decision maker, if this does come to us, which we expect to will. Can I be indulged to just go through some level setting facts? Because until we hear from the steering committee directly, you may not know all this, and it gets very confusing very quickly. On a number of fronts, but I think I can easily clear it up in about a minute and a half. We collect 2% in the unincorporated area of the county on lodger's tax on STRs. This has nothing to do with what the city collects, right?
Like the Bayfield and New Hampshire.
Oh, yeah, Bayfield and New Hampshire, right, Bayfield and New Hampshire, because you don't pay lodger's tax, right? Right, you have a hotel, you have a little motel.
No, we just have seven.
STRs. Okay, okay. So unincorporated county, Bayfield and New Hampshire, it raises about $1 million a year, and we know that is, can vary. All right, we cannot raise it, much to the, frustration of a number of us. There may be state legislation in 25 to, be able to raise the lodger's tax. That's another discussion. But right now, 2% unincorporated county, what, and I want to be very clear that La Plata County supports tourism and we support marketing tourism. It's 35% of the county's economy. So this discussion that the commissioners are having is not about whether we love tourism or hate tourism. That is not, that's a decision point that is not on our plates. Because of the effects of tourism that primarily COVID spawned and, which helped a lot of communities, brought in a lot of sales tax. Again, who knew that we were going to get a global pandemic and have this dynamic happening? The state legislature passed a bill called House Bill 21-1117. What that allows counties to do is to go to ballot and reallocate up to 90% of our lodger's tax to things that enhance the visitor's experience. And the idea of enhancing the visitor's experience is to give a major underscore to things in our communities, such as childcare, housing, transit, and infrastructure. We have a lodger's tax that we have. So the way it works, and this is by statute, we have to do this. We have a panel that meets once a year, and they designate the full million. Right now, it has to be $1 million to a designated marketing entity. Currently, that entity is Visit Durango. So we don't have nearly the flexibility that the city has based on the way this is laid out. We cannot reallocate this unless the ballot passes. So in your packet, there is a letter to us saying reallocate, and I talked to Sarah about this. It needs to be reworded to say, we're asking you to go to ballot, and if it passes, to reallocate the housing. So there's a major nuance here. You're not, by passing this letter, you wouldn't be asking us to reallocate the tax. You would be saying, if it goes to ballot and if it passes, this is what we would like you to do. We, as Kevin's role, cannot advocate for it. We're campaigning for a Practices Act. I, as an elected official, can say what I want as long as I'm not using county resources. This is going to come to, one of the reasons that this has come and bubbled up this quickly is that we are going to be making a decision on this likely on, I'm like 99.9% sure, on the 9th of July. So any input that constituents have, please call me, and we can reallocate up to 90%. The paper has, we don't know where they got the number, set 50. That is something on the agenda as to decide how much of this million we would reallocate. It might be somewhere between 90 and 50. We're not trying to gut the money that goes to market tourism, especially in the corporate. The last thing I'll say before I step out, I think I have this right. You quote me. It's either 6 or 8 other counties have done this, and they have very ingenious ways of using the money. If we have a broad ballot question, we can allocate it as needs come up each year. And we don't, I am not of the mind that we do a percentage like X% goes to childcare and X% goes to housing, because we may have, let's say in a wonderful world, we get our childcare crisis somewhat solved in a couple of years, and in some reason we need more money for housing. So we want to keep it broad. And again, this is to enhance the visitor's experience so that when they're in a restaurant, they can be served people that are working in the retail sector, but it is not to defund the tourism. So that's what I'll say, questions just on facts, because this is the kind of stuff Kevin was saying that I think the steering committee is like. We also can't commit. So there is a request here that this money go to the RHA. Fair request. I love that the steering committee is thinking that far ahead. We can't say in the ballot language, this money every year will go to. The language will be pretty broad. We have examples of other language. So it would say is, do you, the voters of Oconee County, wish to allocate X of the lodgers tax to go to the broad issues to help the voters? All right. Speech done. Do you have any questions? All right. I will step back.
Okay, so working group of the steer committee got together as we discussed already, and we let them know about this opportunity with the county and what that could mean, and there was a lot of discussion around it. So the working group ended up recommending the letter that you all have received in your packet, page 50, and this was revised. Is that the revised one?
Yeah, the
revised
revised one is sitting next to your packets.
Okay, and the revised one is because we included a sentence in the first paragraph that is very specific about their recommendation to seek approximately $200,000 of the county's lodgers tax reallocation to support the RHA's established $250,000 operational budget. Again, Marcia has also provided us with language around it being a reallocation placed on the ballot and if it passed. So we will ensure that that is in the letter as well. But basically the study group made the recommendation to the steer committee. The steer committee was asked if they agreed with this letter being escalated to the RHA board. And a majority of the steer committee did agree with it being escalated to the RHA board. And this is also including some advocacy by a representative of the steer committee as well, that would speak to the commissioners on behalf of the potential of the RHA being a recipient of the lodgers tax. Any conversation what else do I want to say about that? The thought process there too with this study group is that if our operations are on lockdown and or what was the term that you used, Mike, that are more proper, the programming and
Structure
the structure
and programming.
the structure and programming are on lockdown with a sustainable funding source, the RHA would be in a position that it could even go out for bond if needing more funding. So kind of where we're at right now.
To non
Yeah, we feel like that those terms might be better understood too.
I think according to Marcia, if the county's trying to be as flexible as possible with ballot language, somebody coming before the RHA on July 9th would likely say we support the reallocation to items like housing, et cetera, representing the housing potential beneficiaries. And our suggestion is that we allocate X dollars to that for maybe structure and programming. You probably wouldn't say maybe, but structure and programming, that leaves it a lot of fairly open for, and it wouldn't really matter anyway, because none of that's going to make budget language, or I'm sorry, ballot language, right? And as Marcia said, future allocations cannot be committed to, et cetera, so. I think that benefits the RHA because if it's going towards not, the IGA today, that's secured. So why identify operations when we don't have to? In the future, if it does need to go operations, great. But that was just some conversations that we had to further align with what I think the Board of County Commissioners are looking for in terms of comments on July 9th to move forward.
That's what? It has to be as broad as possible, because the thing is that what's happening today, RHA, it is completely different, and it's difficult to change a ballot language once it's been. And this amount that they have in there, are they committed to that amount?
They wanted us to place it in there to be specific, that this would be covering that structure and program.
There was a lot of discussion about childcare. Specials. So, special. The bottom line. Also, sounds like we're flexible with that. I guess I would propose that we not necessarily. Something that's or something to that effect. If that's been decided, it sounds like if they decide. If they decide, their discretion for the year.
And this was the steer committee's letter to the board, to be clear. To this board, to the RHA board, and then we have the staff prepared a letter for the RHA to consider that could be sent to the La Plata County Commissioners. And then and also a letter in response to the steer committee, thanking them for their work, letting them know they were heard.
And these two letters drafted by the staff are just drafts, so if the board has any red lines they wish to make that, please, absolutely, but those would need more.
Sure. Potentially, if we don't want to put a dollar amount, could we ask the commission to consider all housing funds to be allocated to the RHA to then be distributed?
We had two steer committee members step up and say that they would. One is Logan Austin of DAR, and then Pat Long.
So this is the steering committee's letter.
Correct.
It's not our letter to edit or anything. So you're asking us to come up with our own letter of support?
We have in your packet a letter of support, a draft potential letter of support from the RHA board, page 51. And that is for you all to throw it out. You can accept it, you can make red lines.
They're all
Sorry.
here.
They all look very similar, but
Yes.
they have a slightly
About
different.
53.
53, so 151 is a letter from the RHA board to the steer committee, essentially saying, yes, we have received it, and potentially, yes, you have our permission to send an advocate.
We have to send them a letter saying we received your letter.
We're just a thank
See,
you.
that was overkill.
Yeah, and more because they were actively requesting permission to send the representative, then that's more what this letter would be for, it's approving them to do that.
That could be the motion.
Yeah, and then you guys are welcome, like you said, to throw out that letter if you so choose.
We wanted to have a baseline for you all.
Yeah.
I suggest instead of us trying to work this together, we can send it out. Why don't you guys take that, edit it around, based on the comments. that process.
On all three?
Just follow the letter from Congress. That's all I really care about.
I agree.
Is it big 50?
They're good.
I mean, so 52. So, yeah, motion, we have to make a motion to.
Make a motion that we re-wordsmith that based on kind of the facts from the RHA to the commissioners. Make a motion.
Is there a second? To the second, any further discussion? You guys understand your charge?
Yes, I don't know if the letter going to the commissioners, if we're gonna be waiting until the next meeting. I don't know that.
We don't have
Send it
that.
around.
Send it around, yes, sir. And,
Yeah, it's coming up, but
and send it to motion.
don't send it to Marcia. Got it.
Should it be sent to Ken?
He's neutral.
He's
I
another.
can see it, but I'm not just.
Okay.
Okay.
You sent it, sure.
Chuckles.
Great.
Before we finish this, is there any factual comment that you provide?
Factual comment relative to the letter or what we're talking about?
What we're talking?
I would say this is my view of it, is that we've never as a board met with the steer committee, and I know you guys do good work. I don't take that away. I know you sit on that committee, but I can tell you when the long-term finance committee sat in front of the commission a couple weeks ago, instant credibility, because they came and they presented the information that they saw, and it helped the OCC understand the issue and have clarity as to where they want to go. And what we're being asked here is, here's 3 letters, you know, you're wonderful, you did great work, we sign off, and maybe it's fine from a policy standpoint, everyone's comfortable with that. I'm not really comfortable with it from a process standpoint, yeah, and I'm recusing myself from the vote, so, I mean, I'm only one member of the board, but I just put that out there as my view of things.
That's a fair observation. There is a motion that
Did you want to include recognition of the letter received from the steering committee? Authorizing them to participate with the Board of County Commissioners?
yes, authorizing Logan off and
Amended to that motion?
Sounds good to me.
those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. So. Okay, we're running short on time. Grants.
I just have, which I will individually email you guys. One thing we talked about last 40 minutes, I believe, was having a tracker for like the Prop 1, 2, 3 units in progress built. So I'm hoping that I can gather some of that information from each of you about your jurisdictions of compared to your baseline, how many are in process. I assume none have been completed, but maybe. And then we didn't really have any big changes. The grant tracker, I'm still working on getting like funds awarded to date, which I think I've received everything other than the county, which they probably don't really have too many funds that they've received. But those were really the biggest updates. Was Eva, you know?
The Prop 123, we should have legislative at this point, anyway. And game permits.
Yeah, Eva. Okay, so, Ken Curtis, the CEO and president of First Southwest Bank, sent out an email, seeking sort of a broad range of support. As a CDFI bank, they're dedicated obviously to improving the quality of life in our community. They've helped with West Side in the past with some of the co-op funding as well. And they recently learned about family that lost their mobile home due to the fire and everything that they had inside. And so they have set up a GoFundMe page. And as a community partner for Southwest Bank, a shared interest in fostering affordable housing and economic opportunities for all, asking that you please consider joining us in making a donation to support Ms. Mariselva and her family in this time of need. First Southwest Bank will match up to $3,000 of your donations. So wanted to bring that to us. I know we don't have a policy necessarily about this right now, but considering that there is a local funding match to any contributions, wanted to really think that merited a little more attention for our.
I find this to be more of a personal matter than an RHA. Just.
That's a little different.
I have no strong feelings one way or another. I just bring that up. We really do individually.
Well, I appreciate it. The need is real. So the personal state, it's a difficult number of things reaching minutes. Literally, it's not a question. We talk a lot about these. I'm probably people understand the ins and outs, pros and cons, the economics, given interest rate fluctuations, that kind of thing. Because I think it's a really complicated subject in my mind that we just got to throw out. And I struggle with some of the stuff we're talking about. Part of some of the revolving loans. You can tell the life of these things. It's a simple, but you have a lot of experience in it, and I know. So if I would request that at some point in the future, we have some dedicated time to be able to get into it.
It's a deep topic. It's a deep topic. I would merit probably more of like a retreat setting or something like that. Because it's one contractual tool in the toolbox. We're looking at land trust models, we're looking at other models. Deed restrictions are not our only limited tool. But one of the conversations that we continue to think about is how do we market the units, how do we sell the units, how do we develop a pipeline of buyers, where do we have a clearinghouse for folks to find ownership and rental opportunities. So if we're going to dive into deed restrictions, I would love that idea. But I would also like to sort of get this broader conversation around like realtor stuff and where are we going to be posting these units, because the public is confused with AMI, and then they're not sure if we're creating units and they don't know how to apply for units, and where do I find this information? And the city isn't wanting to post it. And Homes Fund, my understanding is with some of their underwriting as a lending institution, have concerns about posting units on their website. And so one of the things we've been talking about though is if you're vetting folks to get income qualified and applying for Homes Fund, but yet they need to find information on the RHA's website, are we leading people sort of in multiple places that makes it not efficient? So would love that conversation. I'll tag team on that. But really it is, the time is real and very needed. We are experiencing resales in the city limits and Mountain Trace, and working with Homes Fund and PAM right now. And I don't really have a place to tell folks where they need to publicly list the unit. It's not that directive in the deed restriction. So we are meeting with someone next week because they need to resurface that conversation with you all about the website.
And in Nashville, we're talking about it right now because we're trying to figure out exactly how we set this land up, HOA, restrictions, conservation, what's the best avenue. So we really need this.
Can I just make a suggestion? And it's just, these people are actually wanting to get in here to do the event, but just to only say that it's such an important topic, I wonder about, instead of a retreat, like an in-service. So like, we wouldn't all have to be there, but like, bring a bag, bring a brown bag. And, bring in the experts and we can dig in for 2 hours or 3 or whatever it takes, because it's super important and it keeps coming up. Okay.
We adjourn.
Work on that.
I just want to, my only La Plata County update, I think you all know this, Elevation Land Trust paid off their loan to West.
Wow.
I know, I didn't know it till it was like added around in a meeting and I'm like, how come nobody told me? So we have our own revolving loan fund that we could gen back up when, the money that we loaned to them. It's quite a bit. And the other thing I would say, I forgot to say earlier, is if you want any of our documents, I can find.
Having sent them to me.
Oh, you have, okay,
Yes,
yeah,
thank you.
but we will be looking at, we're not sure what we're gonna do, but the idea when you pay a loan back is to redeploy it. And so I don't know if we can collaborate with the RHA. Or if we lease another round, we have a lot of things. Yay, Elevation, I don't know where they feel today.
Revolving Colorado has the stakeholder engagement and outreach. Big event for us here. They just sent out the registration. I can resend it out to folks. It's July 29th, Monday, 9 to 3. It's gonna be in Fort Lewis College. I would encourage, if you can, to try and attend that. And it's free. So just wanted to say that, since we are members of that.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
It's time to take this back to you to sign.
Thank you.
I know.
Next thing we could talk about website next week.
I have to go sign up if it took you, see you later. Bye, see you later.
Never doubted that. So. We have a position.
Yeah.
You have to go to